The massive crystalline dome of the Galactic Council chamber sparkled under the light of 3 suns. Inside, representatives from 50 spacefaring species sat in rising tiers of seats, their attention fixed on the holographic display floating in the center of the room. As you can see, droned Admiral Vale, his scaled fingers gesturing at the rotating image of a small spacecraft. These primitives have barely mastered basic space travel. His long neck stretched as he looked down at the gathered representatives. Their largest vessel is smaller than our standard scout ship. The council members murmured among themselves, some letting out sounds that passed for laughter in their respective species. The newly discovered humans were clearly no match for their mighty civilizations. Intelligence Officer James Reed stood quietly in the shadows of the chamber, watching the scene unfold. His plain black uniform marked him as part of the Council's intelligence division, but most representatives barely noticed his presence. That was exactly how he preferred it. Reed's dark eyes narrowed as he studied the hologram. Something about these human ships didn't add up. Their energy readings were off the charts for vessels that size, and their movement patterns defied standard space combat doctrine. "Admiral Vale," Reed spoke up, his voice cutting through the murmurs. "If I may point out." Yes, our ever-cautious intelligence officer," Vale interrupted, his scales shifting to a slightly redder hue, a sign of annoyance in his species, always seeing threats in shadows. The council members chuckled again. Reed kept his face neutral, years of training helping him mask his frustration. These readings suggest their technology is far more advanced than what? Vale cut in again. "Their ships are tiny. Look at this." He manipulated the hologram, bringing up a size comparison between a human vessel and a standard council battleship. The difference was stark. The council ship dwarfed the human craft by at least 20 times. "Size isn't everything," Reed tried again. "Their energy signatures suggest." Council President Tor raised one of his 4 hands, silencing the chamber. "While we appreciate the Intelligence Division's thoroughness, I believe Admiral Vale's assessment is correct. These humans pose no significant threat to galactic stability." Reed watched as Vale's scales shifted to a smug orange color. The Admiral gestured again, and the hologram changed to show Earth's solar system. "I propose a standard subjugation protocol," Vale announced. "We'll send a warning fleet to their home system, demonstrate our power, and add them to the Council's protectorate status. They might even prove useful for maintaining smaller vessels, given their compact nature." More laughter rippled through the chamber. Reed felt his jaw tighten. He'd studied the historical records of these humans. They had a habit of surprising their opponents, and their technological development curve was steeper than any species he'd ever analyzed. "The motion is presented," President Tor announced. "All in favor." Hands, tentacles, and various appendages rose throughout the chamber. Reed counted. It was unanimous, except for his own unraised hand. "Excellent," Vale said, his scales now a pleased purple. "I'll prepare the warning fleet immediately. These humans will learn their place in the galaxy." As the chamber began to empty, Reed approached Vale. "Admiral, please, at least look at my full report. These humans have already been assessed and categorized." Vale snapped. "Know your place, Intelligence Officer. Leave the military decisions to those qualified to make them." Reed watched Vale stride away, his ceremonial cape flowing behind him. In his 10 years serving the Council, Reed had developed a knack for spotting trouble before it happened. Right now, every instinct he had was screaming that they were making a terrible mistake. He pulled out his data pad and looked at the human ship scans again. The energy readings were impossibly high for vessels that size, and the movement patterns suggested maneuverability that should have been impossible. Either every reading they had was wrong, or these humans knew something about spacecraft design that the Council had never even considered. Reed had a feeling they were about to learn exactly why underestimating humanity was a very, very bad idea. The warning fleet would launch tomorrow. He had until then to try one last time to make them understand. But as he looked around the empty chamber, Reed knew it was probably too late. The council had made their decision. Now they would have to live with the consequences. Admiral Thomas stood at the window of Earth's orbital command center, his weathered face reflecting in the reinforced glass as he watched the stars. Behind him, the emergency meeting room buzzed with tension as fleet commanders filled their seats around the large circular table. The message from the Galactic Council played again on the main screen, its arrogant tone filling the room. Your species will submit to Council authority. A warning fleet approaches to demonstrate our power. Resistance is inadvisable given your limited capabilities. Thomas turned away from the window, a slight smile playing at the corners of his mouth. They think we're primitive because our ships are small, he said, his voice calm and steady. Let's discuss how we're going to prove them wrong. Commander Stone pulled up the holographic display of Earth's defense fleet. The ships looked tiny compared to the massive council vessels shown in their intelligence reports, but size had never been humanity's goal. All ships are ready, Admiral, Stone reported. The minimizer drive is functioning perfectly on all vessels. The Council has no idea we can shrink our ships at will. Of course they don't, Thomas replied, walking to the table. No other species has cracked miniaturization technology. They all think bigger is better. He gestured to the display. Show them the Wasp-class ships. A hologram shifted to show Earth's newest fighter craft. At full size, they were already smaller than Council ships. With the minimizer drive activated, they could shrink to 1/10 their original size while maintaining full power. The Council's scans only detected our ships in minimum configuration, the chief engineer explained. They have no idea we can expand to full combat size, or that our weapons maintain the same power output regardless of ship size. Thomas nodded, studying the faces around the table. These men and women had spent years preparing for first contact, knowing humanity would likely be underestimated. Now that moment had arrived. The Council's warning fleet will arrive in 3 days, he continued. They expect to find a primitive species with toy-sized ships. His smile grew wider. Instead, they're going to learn why humanity focused on efficiency over size. The tactical officer brought up the battle plans. Our ships can outmaneuver anything in their fleet. Their targeting systems aren't designed to track vessels our size, and their shields are optimized to stop large-scale attacks, not our concentrated energy weapons. And they have no defense against our biggest advantage, Stone added, triggering another hologram. It showed their newest technology, the Hive configuration. Multiple small ships could combine into larger vessels, pooling their energy and capabilities in ways the Council had never imagined. Thomas walked around the table, looking each commander in the eye. Humanity has spent centuries dreaming about meeting alien life. We hoped for peace but prepared for war. While other species built bigger ships, we built smarter ones. He paused at the main display, watching the simulation of their ships in action. The Council thinks size equals power. They believe their massive ships make them invincible. He turned to face the room. We're about to teach them a very important lesson about human ingenuity. The room filled with determined smiles. They had all seen the mockery in the Council's message, the dismissal of humanity's achievements. Now they would show the galaxy why that was a mistake. Deploy the fleet in minimum configuration, Thomas ordered. Let them think we're scrambling to mount a pathetic defense. When they enter the solar system, his eyes gleamed. That's when we show them what humanity's tiny ships can really do. As the commanders filed out to their stations, Thomas returned to the window. Somewhere out there, the Council's warning fleet was approaching, their crews probably laughing about the easy victory ahead. They had no idea they were flying into a demonstration of humanity's greatest strengths: innovation, adaptability, and the ability to turn perceived weaknesses into extraordinary advantages. The next few days would change the galaxy's understanding of power forever. The Council's warning fleet emerged from hyperspace at the edge of the solar system, their massive ships casting long shadows across space. 20 vessels, each one bigger than a small city, moved into formation. At their center, the flagship Victory of Order dwarfed everything around it. Fleet Commander Axel of the Council Forces stood on his bridge, looking at the scans of Earth's defensive line. What he saw made him laugh. "Those can't be warships," he said to his crew. "They must be scanning errors. Nothing that small could be a threat." A dozen human vessels hung in space before them, appearing no larger than pleasure craft compared to the Council's mighty fleet. Their small size made them look like children's toys against the backdrop of space. "Sending standard warning message," his communications officer reported. Axel stepped forward, his voice filled with mockery as he spoke into the transmitter. "Attention, human vessels. You face the might of the Galactic Council. Your toy ships are no match for our power. Surrender now and spare yourselves embarrassment." On the bridge of Earth's lead ship, Swift Strike, Admiral Thomas received the message. He turned to Commander Stone with a small smile. "They took the bait," Thomas said quietly. "All ships, execute Battle Plan Cobra." The reaction was instant. The human ships suddenly accelerated at speeds the Council fleet had never seen before. Their small size, combined with incredibly powerful engines, let them move like fighter craft rather than warships. "Impossible," Axel shouted as his targeting systems failed to lock onto the rapidly moving human vessels. "Nothing can move that fast." "Sir," his weapons officer called out, "the human ships, they're changing size." Before the Council fleet's startled crews, the human ships activated their minimizer drives in reverse. They expanded to their full combat size, still smaller than Council ships, but now clearly armed for war. Their weapons ports glowed with concentrated energy. "All ships, attack pattern Delta," Thomas commanded. "Show them what our toys can do." The human fleet split into 3 groups, moving with precision that left the Council forces stunned. Their smaller size made them nearly impossible to hit with the Council's heavy weapons, while their own energy weapons struck with pinpoint accuracy. "Our shields are failing," Axel's defensive officer shouted. "Their weapons, the energy is too concentrated. Our shields are designed for broader impacts." The human ships danced through space, their superior maneuverability making them look like swarms of angry bees attacking lumbering bears. Where Council ships fired wide beams that missed their quick targets, human weapons struck like surgical lasers, cutting through shields designed to deflect larger attacks. "Impossible." Axel slammed his fist on his command console. "They're nothing but tiny." His words cut off as 3 human ships suddenly combined before his eyes, their hulls linking to form a larger vessel that rivaled a Council ship in size. But unlike the Council's battleships, this combined vessel could separate again at will, turning one target into 3 in the blink of an eye. "Sir," his second-in-command reported, voice shaking, "we've lost 5 ships already. Our weapons can't track them. Our shields can't stop them. And now they're transforming." Admiral Thomas watched from his bridge as the Council fleet fell into chaos. Their rigid battle formations, designed for large-scale combat between massive ships, crumbled in the face of humanity's revolutionary tactics. "Send a message to the Council flagship," Thomas ordered, his voice calm despite the battle raging around them. "Tell them, size isn't everything. Perhaps you'd like to rethink your assessment of humanity's capabilities." As the message transmitted, another Council ship fell to the combined fire of 3 human vessels. The mighty warning fleet, sent to demonstrate the Council's power, was instead learning a harsh lesson about underestimating humanity's ingenuity. The battle wasn't over, but its outcome was already clear. The age of massive warships was ending, and humanity's tiny fleet was writing the first chapter of a new era in space warfare. Fleet Commander Axel stared in horror at the tactical display as another of his massive ships erupted in a cascade of explosions. 7 Council vessels had already fallen to the human fleet, their mighty shields useless against the precise, concentrated attacks of the smaller ships. "Status report," he demanded, his voice cracking with stress. "Sir, "Our targeting computers can't keep up," his weapons officer replied. "The human ships change size faster than we can lock on. When we adjust for their smaller size, they expand. When we adjust for their larger size, they shrink." On the bridge of the swift strike, Admiral Thomas watched the battle with calm satisfaction. The Council fleet's formation had completely broken down, their ships firing wildly at targets that were already gone by the time their weapons discharged. "Commander Stone," Thomas called out, "time to show them our real surprise. Deploy the Hornet squadrons." Stone grinned and sent the command. The sides of several human ships suddenly opened, revealing hidden launch bays. From these bays poured streams of even smaller vessels, each no bigger than a shuttle, but carrying the same concentrated weapon systems as their parent ships. "What sorcery is this?" Axel gasped as his sensors registered hundreds of new contacts. "They're launching fighter craft from those tiny ships. How is there even room?" The answer became clear as the small craft demonstrated the same size-changing technology as their motherships. What looked like minor support craft suddenly expanded into deadly attack vessels, then shrank again to dodge return fire. "Sir," Axel's second-in-command shouted, "the human ships are using their size changes to slip through our shield frequencies. They shrink to pass through our shields, then expand inside our defensive perimeter." The truth of humanity's technological advantage was becoming painfully clear. While the Council had focused on building bigger ships with more powerful shields, humans had perfected the art of bypassing those defenses entirely. Thomas watched as his fleet executed their carefully planned strategy. "All ships, initiate attack pattern Omega," he ordered. "Show them what happens when you corner a species that spent its entire history learning to punch above its weight." The human fleet split into their smallest configurations, becoming almost impossible to see against the backdrop of space. The Council's massive ships fired blindly, their energy weapons passing harmlessly through the void where human ships had been moments before. Then, in perfect synchronization, the human vessels reappeared at full size in a sphere around the Council flagship. Their weapons powered up simultaneously, creating a web of energy that no shield could fully deflect. "Impossible." Axel slammed his fist on his command console. "Their energy readings, they're the same whether the ships are small or large. How can they maintain such power in a reduced size?" The answer came in another devastating display as 3 human ships combined into one, their energy outputs merging to create a weapon more powerful than anything the Council had ever encountered. The blast cut through the flagship's shields like they weren't even there. "Sir," Axel's bridge crew reported, their voices trembling, "we're detecting power fluctuations across all decks. Shield generators are failing. Weapon systems are overloading from trying to track the smaller vessels." Thomas opened a channel to the Council flagship. "Your ships are designed to fight enemies your own size," he explained calmly. "But humanity learned long ago that bigger isn't always better. Your move, Commander." Axel looked at his tactical display again. Half his fleet was either destroyed or crippled. The remaining ships were surrounded by clouds of human vessels that could change size at will, strike from any angle, and ignore their supposedly superior defenses. "All ships," he finally called out, his voice heavy with defeat. "Stand down weapons. Signal our surrender." As the mighty Council vessels powered down their weapons, Thomas turned to his crew. "Send word to Earth. Tell them the Council's warning fleet just learned a valuable lesson about underestimating humanity." The battle was over, but the real changes were just beginning. The galaxy would never look at tiny ships the same way again. The Galactic Council chamber erupted in chaos as the battle footage played on the massive holographic display. Representatives from 50 species watched in stunned silence as the human ships danced through their fleet's defenses, changing size at will and combining into larger vessels. "Impossible," one delegate shouted. "Their ships ignore every law of physics we know." Admiral Vale stood before the Council, his scales now a sickly gray color of shame and fear. The defeat of his warning fleet had shattered centuries of military doctrine. Half of his mighty ships destroyed, the other half captured or surrendered, all because they had underestimated the humans. "Explain yourself, Admiral," Council President Tor demanded, all four of his hands clenched in anger. "You assured us these humans were primitive." Vale's throat swelled with stress. "The scans, they only showed their ships at minimum size. We had no way of knowing." "Actually, we did." Intelligence Officer Reed stepped forward, his black uniform stark against the colorful chamber. "My reports detailed unusual energy readings from their vessels, readings that suggested advanced technology beyond our understanding." The chamber fell silent as Reed activated his own data display. "These humans didn't follow our path of technological development. While we focused on building bigger ships with more powerful weapons, they perfected miniaturization and energy efficiency." He played more footage from the battle. "Their ships maintain the same power output regardless of size. They can slip through our shields by changing their mass and energy signatures. They've turned our own assumptions about space warfare against us." "Treachery," shouted a delegate from the back. "They deceived us about their true capabilities." "No," Reed corrected firmly. "We deceived ourselves. We saw small ships and assumed weakness. We saw a young species and assumed ignorance. Every assumption we made was based on our own arrogance." The council members shifted uncomfortably in their seats. On the main display, a human ship no larger than a shuttle expanded to combat size and disabled a council vessel 10 times its original mass. President Tor turned to his military advisors. "What are our options?" "We could send the main fleet," one general suggested, but his voice lacked conviction. "Our numbers would overwhelm." "Like they overwhelmed the warning fleet," Reed interrupted. He pointed to the battle footage. "Look at how they fight. Our big ships can't track them. Our weapons can't hit them. Our shields can't stop them. Numbers won't matter if we can't even touch them." Vale, still standing in the center of the chamber, finally spoke up. "Intelligence Officer Reed is right. I was wrong about the humans. Completely wrong. Sending more ships would only lead to more defeats." The chamber erupted in argument. Some species called for immediate peace talks. Others demanded research into matching human technology. A few suggested surrender before the humans decided to take offensive action. President Tor raised all four hands for silence. "What do the humans want?" he asked Reed. "They've sent a simple message," Reed replied, activating the communication display. "They request equal status in the Galactic Council and recognition of their sovereign space. In return, they offer to share some of their technological insights." "Share their technology." Vale's scales shifted to a hopeful blue. "They would teach us." Reed nodded. "They say that diversity in technological approaches makes the galaxy stronger. They want to learn from us as much as teach us." The council members looked at each other, centuries of assumptions about technological progress crumbling around them. Their entire understanding of warfare, ship design, and energy mechanics had been upended by a species they had dismissed as primitive. "We must vote," President Tor announced. "Do we accept humanity's offer of peace in exchange, or do we continue on our current path?" As the voting began, Reed watched the battle footage one final time. The humans had done more than win a military victory. They had forced the entire galaxy to question its most basic assumptions about power and progress. The age of giant warships was over. The era of human innovation had begun. As the Council debated humanity's peace offer, Admiral Thomas prepared to reveal their final and most impressive technological achievement. The demonstration would take place in neutral space, with representatives from all Council species present to witness it. The Council observation ship hung back at a safe distance, its sensors trained on the empty space ahead. On its bridge, Intelligence Officer Reed stood beside President Tor and the still-shamed Admiral Vale, waiting for the human demonstration to begin. What more could they possibly show us? Vale wondered aloud, his scales shifting between curious blue and nervous gray. Reed smiled slightly. According to their message, we've only seen the beginning of what their ships can do. A flash of light announced the arrival of a single human vessel. It looked surprisingly large by human standards, about quarter the size of a council battleship. The observers murmured in confusion. This wasn't the tiny ships they had come to fear. "Greetings, council representatives." Admiral Thomas's voice came through clearly. "What you're about to see is the true extent of our minimizer technology. Watch carefully." The human ship suddenly split apart like a blooming flower. From within its hull emerged more ships, each one unfolding from spaces that shouldn't have been able to contain them. The observers gasped as they realized the truth. The large ship had been carrying a complete fleet within itself, all stored in minimized form. Impossible. Vale's scales turned pure white with shock. Their miniaturization technology allows them to carry entire fleets inside a single ship. The demonstration continued as the emerged ships began changing size and combining in new ways. 3 small vessels linked together. Then another 4 joined them, creating a structure larger than any council ship. Then this combined vessel split apart differently, forming 2 medium-sized ships that immediately began launching squadrons of tiny fighters. "We call it the Matryoshka configuration," Thomas explained, referring to an ancient Earth toy of nested dolls. "Our ships can contain other ships, which can contain more ships, each capable of independent operation or combining in countless ways." Reed watched as the tactical implications became clear. A single human vessel could deploy an entire combat fleet from within itself. Their ships weren't just independent units. They were mobile bases, carriers, and transforming weapons platforms all in one. "The energy requirements," Vale muttered, studying the readings. "How do they power all of this?" As if in answer, the human ships demonstrated their energy manipulation capabilities. The combined vessels channeled their power into a single massive beam, then split apart and fired the same amount of energy through dozens of smaller weapons, proving their total mastery over energy distribution, regardless of ship size or configuration. "Our breakthrough wasn't just miniaturization," Thomas continued. "We learned how to maintain energy density across different scales. A ship's power doesn't change with its size. It simply becomes more concentrated." The council representatives watched in stunned silence as the human ships performed an intricate dance of transformation. Ships combined into larger vessels, which split into smaller ones, which emerged from each other in seemingly impossible ways. It was a display of technological mastery that defied everything the council thought they knew about spacecraft design. "This is why size stopped mattering to us centuries ago," Thomas explained. "Every ship is potentially any size we need it to be. Every fleet can hide inside a single vessel. Every weapon can concentrate its power to match any target." Reed looked at President Tor, whose 4 hands were trembling slightly. "Now you understand why I tried to warn you," Reed said quietly. They weren't building bigger ships because they had already moved beyond such simple concepts of power. The demonstration concluded with all the ships combining into a single massive vessel, larger than anything in the council fleet. Then, in a final display of their mastery, it shrank down to the size of a shuttle while maintaining the same energy readings. The galaxy's understanding of space warfare just changed forever. Vale admitted, his scales now showing the deep blue of revelation. "They haven't just beaten us. They've rendered our entire approach to ship design obsolete." As the human ships prepared to depart, Reed couldn't help but smile. The species that had been mocked for their tiny ships had just proven that true power comes not from size, but from innovation, efficiency, and the ability to adapt. The Great Hall of the Galactic Council looked very different now. Where once 50 species sat in rising tiers based on their military might, now they sat as equals. And today they would welcome their newest member. Intelligence Officer Reed, recently promoted to Chief of Interspecies Relations, stood beside the human delegation. Admiral Thomas led the group, wearing the simple black uniform of Earth's fleet rather than ceremonial dress. It was a subtle reminder that humans valued function over appearance. President Tor rose from his seat, all four hands raised in the traditional gesture of welcome. "Today marks a historic moment," he announced. "For the first time in 10,000 years, the Council admits a new species not through conquest or subjugation, but through innovation and wisdom." Admiral Vale watched from his seat, his scales now permanently tinted with the blue-gray of humility. The defeat of his warning fleet had led not to his disgrace, but to a complete reorganization of Council military doctrine. He now headed the Joint Technology Exchange Program. "The humans have taught us a valuable lesson," Tor continued. "Progress does not always follow the path we expect. Sometimes the smallest ships carry the greatest surprises." Thomas stepped forward to address the Council. "Earth thanks you for this welcome," he said simply. "We come not as conquerors, though we could have been. We come not as subjects, though you once demanded we be. We come as equals, ready to share knowledge and learn from each other." The Council chamber, once filled with mockery at humanity's tiny ships, now buzzed with excitement. Already, several species had begun experimenting with miniaturization technology under human guidance. The age of massive warships was giving way to an era of adaptable, efficient vessels. "Our first joint project," Thomas announced, "will be a new class of patrol ship. It will combine Council expertise in shield harmonics with human miniaturization technology. A true collaboration between our peoples." Reed watched the delegates' reactions. Where once they had laughed at the thought of small ships, now they leaned forward eagerly to see the design specifications. The humans had not just changed military technology, they had changed how the entire galaxy thought about progress. "But perhaps most importantly," Thomas continued, "this marks the beginning of a new approach to galactic civilization, one where we judge not by size or age, but by innovation and wisdom." Vale stood up, his scales shimmering with determination. "The humans have shown us that there are always new paths to discover. My own arrogance nearly cost us a valuable alliance. Instead, it led to the greatest advancement in space technology since the discovery of faster-than-light travel." President Tor raised all four hands again, signaling the start of the integration ceremony. "Let it be recorded," he declared, "that on this day, humanity joins the Galactic Council not as a junior member, but as a full partner in our civilization's future." The ceremony proceeded, but Reed's attention was drawn to a small display on his datapad. The first joint human council ships were launching from Earth's shipyards. They looked tiny against the backdrop of space, just as human ships had once looked tiny to the council fleet. But now everyone knew better than to judge by appearance alone. "A credit for your thoughts?" Thomas asked quietly, standing beside Reed. Reed smiled. "I was just thinking about how far we've come. From dismissing your ships as toys to revolutionizing our understanding of space technology, all because we learned to look past our assumptions." Thomas nodded. "The universe is full of surprises. Sometimes the biggest ones come in the smallest packages." As the ceremony concluded, the Great Hall's dome opened to reveal the star-filled sky above. Somewhere out there, the next generation of ships was taking shape. Vessels that combined the best of human and council technology. They would be ships of peace and exploration, proof that wisdom could overcome prejudice, and that true strength came not from size, but from the willingness to learn and adapt. The galaxy would never be the same. And that was exactly as it should be.